everyone. It's Dr. Laura Mock here again, and I have another visitor. So I'd like to welcome Meredith Bruff to our podcast. Thanks for coming, Meredith.
Thank you.
And Meredith, for our listeners, could you describe what it is you do? Because I think it's really special and cool and amazing.
So I work with moms who have sleepless babies or babies who struggle with sleep, or toddlers or small children up to 4.
Okay, so that is a super common problem. Can you describe how your typical client, like their journey to realizing that they need a coach to help them with their babies?
Well, a lot of babies struggle when they're real young, and parents just kind of cope and deal with it. Mm-hmm. And then around the 4-month sleep regression, things get a lot harder. And they do everything they can over those first 4 months to research, ask friends, read books, and get advice. Some people figure it out, and some people, it just keeps getting worse and worse. And the leaps and the development just makes it worse and worse from month to month. And then they get to this breaking point where they're waking up constantly at night. Baby needs to be held to fall asleep or nursed to sleep. No one else can help with the baby. Baby's completely dependent on mom, and it just gets harder and harder.
I kind of remember those years myself. That was a really tiring time. So you think a lot of times when people reach out to you, they're kind of at this point where they've got this sort of crazy look in their eyes and they're getting kind of desperate?
Definitely. They're exhausted. A lot of women have little support from their husbands too when it comes to needing help, because they're so used to doing everything on their own. The women are. The men aren't quite as involved or aware of how hard it is. And so a lot of times there's a struggle there where the women are like, please listen, please pay attention to their husband or to their partner. And that's another struggle.
So do you think that you end up like coaching the couple sometimes, or coaching the woman to be able to communicate better what her needs are as far as getting help with the baby?
I do. I really love working with couples. I think that's wonderful because the dad is a great tool. You know, as much as we can get him involved, it helps a lot because babies just react differently to their moms. Mm-hmm. And I really think that's something moms don't think of for a long time. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have like separate roles, and maybe mom's staying home or, you know, she's working, and I don't know. Either way, it starts out as mom staying home in the beginning. And so you get into bad patterns where everything's on you. Yeah. So I do a lot of gradual coaching in the beginning, trying to just let them get him involved in bedtime, mm-hmm. See if they can get involved with some of the wake-ups at night. And it just grows from there. One of the things I love about that is they give their husbands more confidence as a dad.
Sure. That's huge.
It's priceless.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just wondering if you can tell me some of the common mistakes or myths that people assume are correct that you end up turning around for people.
Common mistakes. Well, probably the one that everyone comes to me with is just getting in the habit of holding baby to sleep in the first couple of months. Mm-hmm. That's really fun at first.
Because they're so cute and snuggly.
Yes, and some moms have just been daydreaming about that. Sometimes for years and sometimes the whole pregnancy only, but still it's like this dream. They love to rock and they love to. So then babies get into habits. But some of them also have this personality trait of wanting to be held. Mm-hmm. And moms blame themselves. They don't need to. Mm-hmm. But either way, it's really hard. That's probably the biggest one.
Yeah. So how do you take a baby who's used to being held while they fall asleep and teach them nicely that no, you actually can fall asleep by yourself?
So I do everything in baby steps, no pun intended, but I just really think it's important to introduce things gradually, stress-free, a little at a time. I also am able to help moms feel good about small efforts. So sometimes it's just a matter of getting into a new habit of starting a nap or bedtime with baby in their bed. Mm-hmm. Bassinet, pack and play, cot, crib, whatever you want to call it. Just start there. And then when baby's used to that, maybe he's still waking up in the middle of the nap or after 10 or 15 minutes, make a new goal of laying baby down again. and just kind of build from there. And it does make a lot of progress, or little stuff makes a big difference. Sorry.
No, that makes perfect sense. So, like, if mom is trying to teach their baby that they can fall asleep on their own, and first time you lay a baby down in the crib, it's going to cry, right?
Well, that brings up another point. When they're small, you can give them time to play in the crib, and that makes a really big difference too. That just makes it a comfortable atmosphere for the baby. Some babies will learn to fall asleep that way. So if you can time it right, and it's not a baby who cries hard when it's tired, then you can naturally teach your baby to fall asleep that way.
Okay, so using the crib as a place where we kind of hang out.
Yeah.
And it's not just a place where you have to go to sleep now, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's actually a really big part of my work. I find it makes a really big difference for any age baby and toddler. Just give them time there to play often.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. So there's probably a bunch of moms right now who are like, give me more information. Like, what else can you tell us about establishing good sleep habits, especially from the beginning?
Well, there's a lot of sleep consultants or experts out there who like to tell parents exact hours children should be awake for per age. And I don't do that as much because I have seen so much. I've seen such a variety in a child's capacity to be awake, or maybe it's even small. Like, you have a niece who can only be awake for 45 minutes, and she's 4 months old now, and that is not common. It's the cutest thing. She's the cutest thing. But yeah, most babies are awake for almost a couple hours at that age. And it just it can build, it can get longer and longer. But what I like to focus on is their sleep cues. And there's this fabulous book. Even if you have a typical textbook angelic baby, this book is really wonderful. It's called Raising Your Spirited Child. I find that a lot of babies have the traits that are in the list of spirited traits. So they may not have a lot of them, but even if they have one or two, they're difficult traits. And so I really like this book. She doesn't devote a lot of it to sleep, but there's one chapter on sleep where she has a sleep cue chart. And I didn't say the author's name. Her name is Mary Sheedy Kersinka. I don't know how she says it. There's a K at the end, okay? At the last name. That's a K. Anyways, I should probably look into that. Anyway, she has a chapter on sleep, and there's a sleep cue chart in there, and it is phenomenal. She talks about how there's 3 levels of sleep cues. And parents are mistaken, and everyone thinks that the yawns, the eye rubbing, that's about it. A lot of people don't understand that when a baby's crying or really hyper, that's when they're overtired. So there's just some really great information in there. And I like my clients to be aware of the level 1 cues, which are very, very subtle. So it might be like a little bit of pink around the eyes, starting to stare, be a little bit glazed. It's very subtle. So for some babies, especially the ones with a lot of energy, that's when you get them going to sleep.
Really?
Yeah, before the yawns, before the eye rubs. Yeah.
So interesting.
But if you do have a typical textbook child, then the yawning and the eye rubbing, nuzzling in, wanting to feed, that sort of thing is fine to act on, but you need to act on it and get baby to sleep right away. So I really like to have clients take a journal, write down information for at least a week, and just start to see if there's any patterns. Even the most irregular babies can be regulated. It just takes longer. So you want to take that journal around with you for a few weeks and look for patterns.
How do parents know if they have a baby that's not your typical angelic baby? Is it just because the parents are super tired, or are there certain characteristics that delineate, hey, this is a tougher baby?
Right. Well, the traits I was talking about earlier, if a child has 1 or 2, then it's just maybe a child that has a lot of energy, or a child that's more intense. But when you see a lot of the traits, then you probably have a spirited baby, maybe 3, 4, 5. That's not even a lot. There's 12 traits. So here's a few of them. And you can find out more info if you look up spirited or high needs baby. Just Google that. Dr. Sears is one of my favorite resources for info. That author I mentioned, Mary Sheedy Kersinka. I'm sorry, it's hard to remember her name. And then she's probably the best known. And then there's a Fussy Baby site that's out there. There's a Facebook support group. So there's a lot of resources to find out what the whole list is. But the list of traits that I work with the most are intensity. So a baby who screams and cries when you put them down or walk away. Spirited is usually associated more with the energy. So a baby that's just always on the go, always active, can't lay still while you're changing the diaper. I mean, a lot of babies are that way, but this is constant. Being very attached to mom is a trait. Not wanting to be put down. Having really little ability to self-soothe. So mom has to hold the baby, get baby calm. And then even waking often at night is one of the traits, which is kind of weird. But it is. It's in the list. Let me think.
Well, do you mind
sensitive.
Sensitive, like easy to cries because something hurts?
Yeah.
Sensitive?
But sensitivity in a lot of ways. So sensitive like that, but also maybe to noises, maybe to clothing and food and every element, the sun.
Right.
Interesting, huh? I thought of another one, being irregular, and that's really hard. It's a really hard one. It might mean irregular bowel movements or feedings, so they're not always hungry at the same times. They're not tired at the same times. So that's the one where you're going to take some data for a little while and watch those cycles and try to pinpoint them. Nature works with all these traits. It just takes longer for some.
So, and you were talking about a list of some of the resources. Don't you have a website too?
I do have a website. So I have, yeah, good point. And I actually work with the spirited babies a lot. And something that we didn't talk about yet is that I work with gentle methods. That is my passion. And I believe that they work for spirited and high needs babies. So they definitely work for the easygoing, angelic, textbook type babies. Those are just the more predictable kindness of babies. So it just takes a little longer with the tougher babies. So you can find me on www.sweetslumbertime.com. I also have a Facebook group, and it's easy to find. It's at Successful Sleep.
Okay, so what happens in your group?
So I give tips, and I give sometimes I give free sessions. Sometimes it's a video with just some typical questions I'm getting. I give some answers for that. When parents introduce themselves when they're new to the group, they'll tell me what's going on. I'll give them a few tips then too. So it's a pretty nice little resource.
That does sound nice. And I just have to say, not to put you on the spot and like compliment you without warning you, but Meredith has helped several of my relatives and friends. And she really makes a difference in the quality of life for the whole family. It's like she comes in and just spreads her magic with a wand or something, and the parents feel calmer and the baby's more confident. It's pretty amazing what you do. I want you to know. I think it's pretty
Thank you.
Pretty cool.
Well, you just brought something up. Sometimes I work with people that are local, and I'll go into their homes. And sometimes, most of the time, I work with people over FaceTime, over the internet and the phone.
Yeah, so you could do either.
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing too. So, what was that last thing I was going to ask? Oh, yeah. We were getting together because sometimes Meredith and I chat about our coaching businesses and about the places where our expertise crosses. And one of them is something that we are wanting to learn more about, which is baby airway. And we were wondering if any of you ladies, you dentists, could point us in a direction of where we can learn more about how to educate the public about tongue ties and recognizing a kid who might have a compromised airway, maybe isn't sleeping very well because of poor breathing. So if you're one of those ladies and you want to teach Meredith how she can learn more about that, write us a comment either on YouTube or Facebook. We'd love to hear what resources you have learned from. And then Meredith can continue to spread the awareness in the public about airway and small children. All right.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to say?
Well, we were thinking that it might be good to talk about my program just a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear it.
So I don't want to talk much about it, but I do offer 12 weeks of support. And the first 6 weeks is when a lot of the work and the changes happen. And you want to hear that, right? You don't want it to take that long anyway. But so 3 to 4 weeks is typical for most of the progress to happen. But I like to say the first 6 weeks because I work with some of the spirited and high needs babies. But so those first 6 weeks, I talk to the mother or couple for an hour a week. We just have one appointment, and then there's some emailing back and forth. I have some online courses for parents to be able to do a lot hands-on with training videos and worksheets and that sort of thing. And then the last 6 weeks of the program, you can divide it up as you want, but there's another 3 hours, and most families use like a half hour a week. So I like to really write it out and make sure that we get through any leaps or growth spurts or there's some teething and sickness involved, and that way these are permanent habits.
So when you say there's another 3 hours in the last 6 weeks, you mean 3 more hours of coaching?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
There's 3 more hours, so there's a total of 9 hours of coaching over the 12 weeks.
Okay. And what's a typical result? What are families usually saying when they're done?
Well, a lot of times the biggest thing they have to say is how much they love me and working with me. I think, are you the one who started calling me the mama whisperer?
Yes.
Because a lot of people call me the baby whisperer, but the mama whisperer I'm pretty proud of because I really like to leave moms not only in better shape mentally and physically, but also I like to pass on my 19 years of parenting wisdom that I've learned. And I really care. It's really important to me that you succeed. So that, and then, a mom might come to me, especially working mom, just completely fragile. And,
Yes.
When you're working, it's hard to get up once. That's pretty much everyone's limit.
Yeah.
Once is fine. We can deal with that. But when it's every hour or more often or every 2 hours or 3, it's still really, really hard.
Yep.
So being able to sleep all night or until 4, 5, or 6 in the morning is pretty fabulous when you're going to work. That's a really big deal. But also, probably my favorite compliment I ever had was when a mom told me she felt really proud of her child watching him fall asleep on his own, and that it strengthened her love and her bond with him. I love hearing things like that. But they're new people. It's really exciting to see transformation like that.
Yeah. It sounds like your job, you're just going around touching people's lives, making the world a better place.
Yeah, kind of wish I had the little magic wand, but there's some work involved. But it is wonderful, and I draw from nature as much as possible and give moms the tools to be able to keep those habits strong forever.
Mm-hmm. So if mom is listening to this and she wants to find you, she can Google Sweet Slumber.
Yeah, or Sweet Slumber Time.
Sweet Slumber Time.
Yeah, Sweet Slumber is the name of my business. Sweet Slumber Time it's the website, it's a Facebook page, it's an Instagram page.
Or she could Facebook Successful Sleep. Okay. There you have it, ladies, and we would like to hear from you about how we can learn more about Airways. I hope everyone has a great week, and I will talk to you soon.